Could you, before I just come back to JJ on this, can you name some of those nations, obviously, other than the South American nations, but Chinese, what are we talking about? Middle East?
100%.
Well,
Yeah,
absolutely.
go ahead.
You're talking
Okay,
about
yeah.
every nation. I went down to the border 2 or 3 times. To Texas actually invited us to go down there. I laughed one day. We were down there and we got there a little bit late. We'd taken a person's private plane, flew down there, got there a little bit late, and they said, "Hey, y'all's not going to see anybody. We've already picked up 400 people that day." And so we said, "Well, we're just going to drive down the river down here." And we got down there no more than 3/4 mile, probably under one of those ramps that go into Mexico. They had 75, mainly children in there. And so about 75 caught right there. We go on down the river, probably run into 25. Hey, they were from, there were very few, what you would say, Mexican descent there.
Yep.
They were all South American, Cuban, was what we were getting into, Brazil, Honduras, those types. Then we turned around. We were going back to the airport. This is roughly about evening time, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. We're headed back to the airport, which was a good 90-mile or pretty good drive up there. And this is at Eagle Pass, by the way. Anyways, they called us back and said, "Hey, come down here." And we got down there on the side of the road, and we probably had 100, 150 of them held right there. And where we were standing, you can see another group. I asked them, said, "Well, how many is in that group?" And it was another 150. And again, all nationalities, a lot of kids. One of the guys was telling us they took a 6-year-old in there. He wanted to go to the bathroom in the sheriff's department. They said, "Well, let us take you down there. We'll show you where it's at." And he said, "Oh, I've been here lots of times. I know where it's at." And that's the kind of stories you've got. But again, one of the things that we're not even talking about is the fentanyl that's coming across. Of course, Trump has just put, President Trump, excuse me, has, marked Venezuelan is really putting an attack. I'm 100,000% for it. We're having lots of lives lost to fentanyl. And again, when we talk about, like here in Oklahoma, people don't realize when you're looking at our prison system, how many people are dying, ODing. When you're looking in our state, thousands of people, about 1,000, I think, died. So again, you're talking about one of the biggest killers in the United States, in Oklahoma. So a lot of people, well, that's down in Texas. No, it's not. All of that comes inland. And really, if you look at, I've been a law enforcement officer for a long time, and they learned a long time ago to go inland to Oklahoma City, to Atlanta, to these big hubs that they use, Memphis and all of these. And that's where they bring into, they learn not to go right there on the border because naturally they'd run into a lot of attacks right there. So they bring it on inland into Oklahoma, into Tennessee, Arkansas, Georgia, and these Louisiana and these kind of states. So absolutely, we're all in this battle together. And again, when you look at the human trafficking that goes with this and how that affects all of us, and how the Chinese, if you want to talk about foreign attack on a state, Oklahoma stupidly passed the medical, it wasn't medical, marijuana, and we have seen an influx of Chinese, of different nationalities come in, illegal grows. And again, it's just wreaked havoc on our state and on our criminal justice system. So, and the human trafficking and, the slave labor that goes with that. So, we talk about slavery as something in the past, and it quite humors me that when we have it right now going on, the same people who scream the loudest about slavery in the past turn a blind eye to what's going on right now.
JJ, when you're talking about slavery, could you give me an example of that?
Oh, absolutely.
I'll give you
massive, absolutely massive examples. You've got girls that are brought up here and they're put in prostitution. And what happens, they give them their dress and they charge them for that. They give them their room and board. They charge them for that. They give them food. Hey, these girls are sleeping with 17, 18 Johns a day. And guess what? They're still going in the hole they never get out of. They're slaves. And again, these guys that they come in and drop off at these marijuana farms, and again, they're getting paid nothing. And if they get busted, they don't care about them. And that's the price of doing business. So they may have 10 farms out here. But again, if one gets busted, they still have 9 making them money. They don't care. Those people are expendable, and they're just letting them stay out there in huts and making money off of them. It's against slave labor. And again, that's what we're seeing when we have people come across that don't have green cards, that don't have any kind of labor laws to protect them. What's happening is a bunch of these industries are going to bring them in. Naturally, they like cheap labor. I've got a lot of employers who want a green card. They want to have legal people come over and work. We all want that. We would love to see them. There's nobody discriminate against any nationality, but you got to come legal. And that's the only way that keeps employment up, keeps wages up, and that we don't get this slave labor, and we don't get this human trafficking, and we don't get the sexual exploitation of women and children. And that's what's happening under, thank goodness President Trump has stopped that, and we have seen a shutdown, but now it's cleanup time, and we've got to get behind the cleanup.
Yeah. What are your to both of you? What are your view? Because we're discussing what's been happening on the southern border. Then what about what's been happening in Canada in regard to the amount of drugs that come in from above you there? Do you want to make any comment on that? Because Justin Trudeau would turn a blind eye all over the place.
No, you know what? We're watching it pretty closely. When I was working the border, we did do counter human trafficking. We did go after the cartels. We went what we called a needle in a stack of needles, because that's basically what we were doing with that many numbers. Trump comes in. President Trump, I'll second you, JJ. He comes in and he puts the tourniquet on the border. Okay, but we still got 10,000, maybe 100,000 tiny cuts. And so by looking at specifics of this Cartel del Noreste, the Northeast guys, JG, just Nuevo Generation, these specific cartels are now working on our northern border. And so we have a guy that works on our team who just came back from Canada, where he's working with some of the Indian tribes up there, the native tribes, and they have their own law enforcement, and they're going against what the Trudeau government did, which was kind of turn a blind eye to that. So these tribes are working hard, and so we're sharing information now with the northern border, because we've got to know what's coming on both sides of us. Because exactly what JJ said, this is every state is a border state now. Because of the major thoroughfares, you got Highway 35 goes all the way from South Texas all the way up to Minnesota, and you see these things. Highway 40 going back and forth. You go into Arkansas. I mean, it's straight up. These are routes that are being used with these hubs, and we call them lily pads. These lily pad hubs of different entities, and Cartel del Noreste is just minor. The biggest cartel that we deal with on the southern border is the Cartel of the Suns, and that's Venezuelans. And that's why we approve of this forced projection that President Trump is doing, because that's walk softly and carry a big stick. Well, that's exactly what he's doing. So we appreciate that. But now we've got to get them on their heels, so to speak, so that they will make mistakes, and they are. We've just got to maintain, because we don't know who's coming in after Trump. We don't know who's coming in after my incumbent that I'm running against. We don't have, there's an agenda 2030. We know that's a global agenda. And so these are things that we're looking at as far as threat vectors, so that we can play some serious chess and be left of bang in the theory of not getting hit by the IED in the road. We've got to be prepared for the next onslaught should we not have a President Trump in office. It helps us, but
I hear you.
It's not everything.
I hear you. I want to come back to the Venezuelan boat thing, but I just want to make a comment, and I'll share it with you by email. There was a book written in 1992 by an amazing woman. I had the privilege to talk to her recently, called Rachel Ehrenfeld, and she wrote a book called Narco Terrorism back in 1992. I'm not sitting here as some clever ass going, I know everything. I don't. What it is about the fact that people have not known, have they, how long this game, this awful business, this awful game has been going on, and people then taking the eye off the ball. So JJ,
Mark,
sorry, I
Mark,
interrupted. What were you?
I think that a mistake that a lot of people make, we call these gangs.
Mm.
And again, a lot of times we'll say gangs, we'll say cartel. We now are more accustomed saying cartel. But a lot of people, when you think gang, you think a bunch of hoodlums out here that just, maybe the Crips or Bloods, a bunch of gangsters down on the street. These guys are, they're multi-million, billions of dollars. They have some of the highest tech. They have military equipment. And if you think that you're going to shut them down and they're just going to go home and play in their sandbox, and that ain't what's going to happen. These guys are going to exploit every position that we have. They're going to find our weakest place, and they're going to exploit that, whether it's Canada, whether it's by sea, whether it's by air, drone, tunnels in, border, by trying to be diverse on all of them, making you spread out everything. Again, they're going to do human trafficking. They're not just going to be confined to drugs. They're doing fentanyl. They're cutting fentanyl in every drug. I couldn't believe when I first saw a what they call a stamped drug, which would be like a pill form that has like ecstasy that has fentanyl in it, and that's, my gosh, they're going to places we never dreamed of going. And so again, people got to stop thinking about them as gangsters, and you have to change the language as President Trump has. They're terrorists. They are military terrorists. These are people that we should declare war against and we should attack. And that should be our language all the time, to call them out on that.
Well, putting it in a modern context, and another war that was started on the 7th of October 2023 when Hamas attacked Israel from Gaza. And just for the record, I've been to Israel twice this year, and was down there in the Gaza envelope, which was quite an experience. But the other thing is where people have raised the point that groups like Hezbollah in the northern part, way up north in Israel, have then been involved with drug trafficking, drug dealing, which is hence in regard to what's happening in Venezuela. Let's get into that, because I want to know what you think. And especially when some people are objecting to the president's actions. So what do you think of that, guys? The fact that people may say, well, hold on a minute, does he know what's on those boats? You're aware of how people get intel. What are your thoughts on this? I think you've already begun to express that.
On the Hezbollah side, specifically since the 90s, and around 96 is really when that link up happened with Venezuela. The Cartel of the Suns has tightly linked up with Hezbollah. We saw them coming across the border, but they were documented under Venezuela documentation. Now, when they brought on December the 18th of 2 years ago, they came into Eagle Pass with 12,500 Venezuelans, many of which were Tren de Aragua. Okay, so these are guys out of jail, so they're thugs. They're not a gang, just as JJ says. They are thugs. They're the henchmen. So we saw in Aurora, Colorado, when we saw they were occupying neighborhoods and whatnot, apartment complexes. Look, that's what they do. They work through the seams and the gaps of chaos, which the numbers at the time were chaos, and that's what I would do as a special operator going into another country and looking for the seams and the gaps. Right. So what do we do now? We play a game, and it's a game. It's not a game. It's a serious game of TTPs, techniques, tactics, and practices. When they change theirs, and we figure out what they're doing, they will change it again. It's a cat and mouse. It's, what do you call it? A shell game, whack-a-mole, lots of different names, but that's what they're doing. So now the routes are looking at like this. We got ports of entry coming across with tractor trailers. Okay, so now we're seeing a lot of illegal commercial driver's license drivers, many of which are from India, not my kind in the Indian nation, but we got people coming in from India who are driving these tractor trailers, and they're working for cartels. They're tied in with some of the thugs from Tren de Aragua. They're moving product into the nation, but they're also moving bodies. And so we don't see the same numbers coming across. It's not overt, it's covert. And those are the interesting, we call it on the border, interesting traffic. That's the ones that are really coming in to infiltrate, if you will, via cells. 30,000 estimated Chinese, CCP. They are connected to the intelligence apparatus. If they're a fighting age male, they are connected, period. Qatar, Oman,
Yeah.
You name it,
Yeah.
Iraqis, Afghanis, Iranians, through the Hezbollah connection. So those are bad actors. We've seen it. There was a something stopped in Dallas Fort Worth yesterday, where they're investigating it now. I can't give the details on, but I'm tied in with the law enforcement guys on that, to follow on to what happened in Washington D.C. with the killing of the national shooting of National Guardsmen, one of which is passed. So these things will increase unless we do something about it.
Well, at some point in the conversation, I want to raise even more with you what's happening in the Dallas area in regard to Islamism and what's happening there in regard to the street. Sorry, JJ.
Yeah, Mark, one of the things that I think is really, really important for our listeners to understand is that Venezuela, if you want to start tracking back a lot of problems, and a lot of people don't like this. I came out way early in 20 and said we were attacked by China. China has, an act of war to me, because what you're seeing is COVID was an act of war. COVID was an intentional. They knew that they had that in Wuhan. They stopped traffic from going out of Wuhan into China, but allowed that to go worldwide. They purchased all the PPE, all the protection equipment, the vents, and then they released that, made massive money on that. That was an intentional attack and was mainly aimed at America to cripple our finances. When you look at Venezuela, they're tracking back the election results of 2020. So the stowed election, and again, I don't think it's just 2020 election. I think our election's been tampered with probably since at least 2012, maybe before that. But when you go back to where all this is coming out of, you're looking at Venezuela, when you're looking at the Chinese bringing over the fentanyl and how they're getting that's to these cartels, to the Venezuelan cartels again. So when we're talking about, what do you call a declared act of war against the country? If you do a biological attack, if you try to cripple their elections and take down their elections, if you're doing another biological and fentanyl and trying to attack, and then you're overrunning their borders, I would say that that's an act of war, and that we have to declare an act of war. And if that means blowing up some boats out there, by damn, blow up all he wants is where I'm at,
It's a real shame, isn't it? Because when we look at Venezuela, we look at how much oil they then have access to, and the fact that at one point it was an extremely beautiful country and had everything going for it.
I look at Venezuela and say that could be America if we don't wake up.
Right. I agree I fully agree with you and get this. JJ, this may sound, and Doc, this may sound a bit of a stupid question, but can you then define the damages that fentanyl does? What does it consist of, and what does it then do?
Oh, absolutely, because you can't hardly even begin to say where it all the cost. So first of all, you have the cost of law enforcement trying to combat this thing and trying to get on top of fentanyl in all the other drugs. And again, what it does, it cheapens the amount of drugs, because they're cutting with this that they're getting for nothing. They're cutting, so that puts more drugs out there that we have to combat. And again, that means that we have to combat all these drugs, all the gangs, and all of this. But then all the Narcan that you're now having to put into schools, into universities. Whoever dreamed that you would go to university and that they're going to put Narcan in your school kit that you're going to get to go into university? Here's your can of Narcan. And again, the hospitals, what it's costing us to treat, when you're looking in prisons, the death, the hospital costs that it's costing to treat in there. When we're talking about exposure to the DHS, like we have people dying and all of those kind of things that leave kids orphans. So no matter what you're talking about, the impact to the workforce, when you lose 1,000 people, I think that I'm right saying that most of these people are from 19 to 48, which is again, that main block of your workforce, how that's affecting education, how that affects prisons, how that affects hospitals, how that affects law enforcement, and how that affects the entire United States, but not just United States. I always look at home. Home's Oklahoma for me, and that's where I'm trying to take care of. It's a massive bill that the taxpayers of Oklahoma get because of these cartels and because China wants to again declare war on us. It's a biological war. That's all it is. And the cost of war is heavy, and we're too stupid to wake up and call it what it is, and it's an act of war.
Well, I hear you. And China wants to be the number one and wants to be number one hegemony. That is what all this is about. Doc, fentanyl, is it completely synthetic? Is it completely man-made?
Yeah, it is a respiratory depressant. It's man-made. It's the precursors were brought in as far as this fight right now on the border by the Chinese, and then the technology was taught to the cartels so they could mass produce it and cut it and get it out there into the area, which they don't care. Look, they don't care if they lose customers. Their intent is not to make. They're making money hand over fist, but it's like it is to demoralize, destabilize, and to disenfranchise a populace. That's what when I'm setting up a color revolution, that's what I do downrange, right? That's what I'm looking for as an operator. I haven't had to do it because I spent 20 years of doing direct action against the straight up against jihadists. But for me, I understand that premise. And so when you're looking at what that is what is that doing? Even in right there on the Red River in Marshall County, Oklahoma, we lost our postmaster because he decided to buy himself one of those cigarettes, but it was laced, marijuana cigarette. It was laced with fentanyl, and he went into respiratory depression.
Awful.
It's extremely dangerous, and they're mixing it now with something called, not now, for the past couple of years, something called Trank. All right, so Trank is a horse tranquilizer, and they're mixing it with that. And so now you not only have the respiratory depressant, but you have the tranquilizer, which is made for horses, and they don't care if they lose customer. That's to demoralize and destabilize. So this is 1842 when the opium wars in China. This is their answer to that. This is exactly what this is. They're doing it on us because they're getting back at us. Not just us, the free, the Five Eye countries, of which you are one.
And as you were saying in communication with dear Andrew Bridgen, and yes, you have guns. Sadly, we don't. That's another subject. I think maybe we will get onto. And please don't blame me. I'm not the one that gave them up. I think round by 1925, because if we were around, I think we would have then completely objected to that. Absolutely. So we've got. What about going back even further? What about looking at the awful incident when people had lost their lives over Fast and Furious and the whole Eric Holder thing? Could you remind us about that?
Absolutely, yes. That was Eric Holder. He was running the DOJ shop, but Department of Justice side. But you also had the guns. Guns transferring, and look, we still see it. We still see guns going south and guns going north, right? The ones coming in north don't have a number on them. The ones going south are so they can go down and then be in the hands of some of the people. I hate to even mention this, the Zetas, when the Zetas were about down there in the 90s, our U.S. forces were training the Zetas. This was a faction of special operations guys in Mexico. Those guys turned, right? Because money, ideology, coercion, ego, the mice principle. They turned, and now they went with the cartels, the highest bidder, and they became a fighting force for them. Now they're brought into the Nuevo generation. So those guys are working for them. They're trained by U.S. military special operations, and those weapon systems are now in the hands of them, the ones that came south. Right, so guns go both ways. Money goes both ways. It just depends on the color. Humans typically go north. We do get people trafficking children, U.S. children, out of the country for organ harvesting. This is an ugly thing, but this is a fact. And so when you look at all that with regard to the guns down there, there was some agents that lost their lives. DEA agents that brought a lot of it to light. But let's now fast forward and go, what happened when we left all those weapons, piles of weapons in Afghanistan, right? For a guy that put 21 Americans in a body bag, friends of mine, in those wars in the Middle East for nothing, to leave it and to leave all that equipment, billions of dollars of equipment. And we are going to see those serial numbers coming across these borders anytime now. And they may be already here because we know how that happens on the world market. Those things are traded for nothing on a dollar.
And
JJ.
Mark, yeah, you know, a lot of people talk about Fast and Furious, and what a lot of people don't realize, there was the same type of operation going on. So Fast and Furious happened in Phoenix, but there was another one called Wide Receiver that happened in Tucson that was just equally as bad. So when we act like, well, this was one little mess up of the ATF, no, this was a very, very intentional thing the ATF was doing. And again, they were replicating that in Tucson. And then if you watched it, and Biden come out and made a speech where he was going to declare war on the federal firearms license dealers in all the United States. And he did. He went after all of those, trying to arrest them. We had a preacher, teacher here in Oklahoma, in southeastern Oklahoma, that they set up. It was ridiculous. I tried to get ATF arrested. In fact, I have a probable cause setting on President Trump's desk right now. We had one of our congressional people verify that is on his desk, because what the ATF was doing was absolutely atrocious. It's illegal. And they were coming in and raiding, like this preacher / teacher that was a federal firearms dealer. He let them come into his house, look. He let them on his computer and look. And yet they raided his house like they did in the guy in Arkansas over there in Hope, where they killed him, which I think was intentional if you study it. And they did this guy the same way, came in, seized. Now, catch this, they seized half his weapons. I'm a law enforcement person, okay? If you come in and seize, you got to take all of them or none of them. You can't seize half of them. I will give them credit. The ATF has good taste in guns. They took his best guns, you know what I'm saying? And then they ended up charging him. He ended up having a probation case. They were talking about giving him 10 years in the penitentiary for selling ammunition. It wasn't any of the gun stuff. He's totally legal, but they ran a guy in and he said, I'm a felon. Now you can go to Walmart, you can go to Costco, you can go to any of them outdoor, Bass Pro Shop, buy ammo, never have to be carded. But they walk in this guy's little ammo store and say, I'm a felon. And he went ahead and sold them ammo, not knowing it's illegal, which he should have. But he sold them ammo. And guess what? They give him 10 years probation, ruined his life, took his teaching certificate, the whole 9 yards. I mean, again, here we talk about all the stuff going on with Fast and Furious, with Wide Receiver, with all the stuff going on the border, illegal drugs, guns, and all that. But we're going to be down here in southeastern Oklahoma trying to ruin a school teacher / preacher over a few shells. So that's, again, we need to reform the ATF. In fact, just gut them and go back to ground zero to get them straightened out. Therefore, the people, we are a Second Amendment country, and ATF should be there to support us, not be criminalized and not be attacking us. So again, it's time we reform government.
When you talk about that incident that very sadly happened with this preacher, and they're going in, they're looking at computer. What year was this? Oh,
it's been about 2 years ago. Yeah. I wrote a probable cause because when they come in, they took down his surveillance equipment. They told him, said, you tell your buddies that we're coming after them. That's a terroristic threat. They did not have a proper search warrant, in my opinion. Again, they took his guns illegally because they didn't charge him. They took him and made him subject of grand jury. You can't take his guns until you have a reason to charge him. And if you take him grand jury, you hadn't charged him. They seized the guns. Then they wrote him a letter and said, if you will take $10 per gun, some of these guns, $1,000 guns, 4 or 5,000, and said, if you'll take $10, we'll make all this go away. And again, that's extortion by government all day long. So I wrote a probable cause as law enforcement would do, sent that to our AG. Our AG didn't have the guts or backbone to do it, which is not uncommon. So we sent it on to President Trump. It's sitting on President Trump's desk right now. I hope he will act. I hope that these agents that were involved in that, they need to get some of their own medicine, and we need to be doing to them what they did to this guy.
JJ, well, it reminds me, and Doc, and please, you chime in and educate me on this, because when you're talking about the reform of the ATF, I have a long memory when I and talked to a number of people as well, which is the awful behavior by various people in regard to Ruby Ridge. And then I'm thinking of Waco as well. And
Mhm.
also, if we even go back to the Oklahoma bombing as well, this isn't conspiracy 101. These events happened, and also the spill out from that, which is then relevant to what's happening. So the AG under Biden, his name is completely gone out of my mind at the moment, because at one point out of Oklahoma, the whole idea was he would end up on the Supreme Court. I think that was his wish. But why have they not learnt their lessons? I say this respectfully. I know who I'm talking to, from the awful incidents that happened in regard to Ruby Ridge and Waco as well. The lack of lessons they're learned, or even pulling these people up. Please correct me, and please just tell me what your opinion is on that.
Well, for me, it's there's it really goes back to the heart, and I know it's going to be an esoteric moment here, but just hear me out.
I hear you.
That when you have a servant's heart, you're not going to be putting things over your people that you represent, and it's
Yeah.
just that's why I believe. I know JJ just a little bit here, but I've heard about him a long time. He has that servant's heart, and he's not afraid
Mm,
to demonstrate, his opinion on something, and that's
mm,
important because we
mm,
it's called personal courage. It's easy to have
mm,
physical courage. We
mm.
I grew up in the military. We got physical courage all day long. Personal courage to stand up for what is right. I stood up against the Department of Defense and said the shots are wrong. I won't give them to my
Yep.
troops. And I had
Yep.
6,000 troops on the border, and I got fired over it. Lost my job. 2 years to get my retirement pay because it
Mm,
was a snafu in the system. But those are prices that you pay when you tell the truth. So the ability to stand up has just been lost because the perceived power that they have at the federal level and then sometimes at the state levels in many different states. So there's a perceived power that is not constitutional. Our power is derived by our creator, right? That's the way our constitution is written. And so if it's derived by the creator, then how are you supreme to the power that the sovereignty that you have? And this power then goes into what we call lawfare. So for me, lawfare is a thing. It's a very big thing. And this has to be stopped. And so I have a task force that's being developed so that when we hit the ground after we win, I can't think lose. We're going to then have a task force, 24 members. State of Texas allows us to do that, and then to put people like former law enforcement people, but people without an agenda, not former governors. Not we have a task forces right now in Texas with a former governor on there. I don't want that. What I want is the people to stand up, constitutional attorneys, to say what is right when it comes to lawfare, because that's lawfare. J6ers, they got hit pretty
Yep.
hard
Yep.
in Texas.
Yep.
Drove through a gate just south of me in San Marcos of an old man who was there that day, but he never went in the building. They drove through his front gate with a Bearcat. He came out on the porch at 6 o'clock in the morning with a shotgun, nearly got killed because he didn't know who was coming in. And so that kind of stuff is just a setup for them to then, plant some evidence or whatever and say, well, he came out with a gun and we were executing a no-knock warrant, which turned into a Bearcat warrant. And it was a no-knock warrant, meaning they could come in and do that, but they didn't notify the sheriff, right, of the county. That's
Mm,
Hayes County. They did not
mm,
notify the sheriff, and the sheriff said, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Now he failed. That's a dereliction of duty because he is supposed to stand up and interpose for his citizens, right? Our Constitution is based off of a guy from Scotland, which in
absolutely.
1500s, John Knox, he went
Mm,
into the nobles and said, I'm going to interpose. And so there's a
mm.
doctrine of lesser magistrates, which then our founding fathers looked at what he wrote. They were biblical principles, and these guys don't read that. They don't read the history and understand really with a servant's heart what they're supposed to do. So that's my 40,000 foot take on it.
Well, because you're talking about alienable rights, your
Yes, sir.
God-given rights. I suppose it then throws out another question. I want to come back to this, but it throws out another question and I've said this to another dear friend of mine in Oklahoma that's run for office a number of times. Civics is not taught
Yeah.
properly anymore in your country. When
No,
between when do you think that was stopped? When do you think civics, in many ways, could you identify a moment where that wasn't being taught properly?
I don't know that I can identify it, but I can tell you that when my kids, so when I was in there, we were most certainly taught civics. And I can tell you that I was a late bloomer and had kids in the 2000s. But, you know, I mean, somewhere in 2010, while they're going to school, it just doesn't seem like that is any part of it. And again, I think one of the things on the subject that we're talking about, you know, Merrick Garland, you mentioned a while ago.
That's who I meant. Yeah.
Merrick Garland, you know, we like to think that the people we elect are you're talking about, are they learning a lesson? Are we learning from our past history? And we like to think they're up there trying to do good. I think we had to change our perception of government. There are people who have taken high positions, including the president, who fully they're treason. They're treasonous. They're terrorists. They're treasonous. In my opinion, they attacked. They meant to. When you open the border like Biden did, and I don't think Biden was even running. I don't think he knew his name. But here's the deal: when you open that border, as you did, when you declare war on the gun, Second Amendment people, I mean, as they did, when you allow fentanyl to come in, as they did, when you weaponize the court system, as they did, I would say they probably have learned some lessons from the past, and they are using those lessons to attack and destroy our country because they're a bunch of stinking treasonous cats. I'm trying to give the G-rated version. I'm going to give the G-rated version. You know what I'm saying? I think they learned a lot, and I think they're intentionally up there doing harm. And I think finally, for once in many, many years, that we're going to see them called out. And again, all of the finances that we have lost as a country that have been poured into other countries have been poured in not just to others and to private individuals, but to destroy. I think it was used personally to destroy our country, destroy the very fabric of America, destroy the Constitution. I watch Omar right now. She was standing up the other day talking about how Trump didn't understand the Constitution. Boy, you want to slap her naked and well, I won't say that. I was going to say something else. You want to slap her silly, okay? And so, anyways, you know, it's just, that's my opinion, is we've got to change our way of thinking. We like to think that government is there to help. A wise man once said, when a government official shows up to help, run. You know what I'm saying? And so, again, we've got to change our conception. And again, what Doc was saying a while ago, these professional politicians, I don't call myself a professional politician. I got them all mad at me. Capital's mad, establishment's mad, lobbyists are mad. And guess what? I wear that like a badge of honor. And if they send me home, I'll go home proudly. And Doc, I appreciate what you said when you stood up. And you know, it takes personal courage to stand up and say, I'm not going to do this. And personal courage is fine. But when it starts costing, most people have a tendency to lose that courage. And when it costs you your job, it costs you your retirement, and you're still willing to stand. That's the kind of people we need to be electing into office. We got to get people back who are not there for, you know, self-benefit, but there to improve our country and take back our country. That's what I believe.
Absolutely, because it comes down to integrity, JJ. That is what we're then talking about. Doc, when you stood up and said, no, I am not going along with these vaccines, I'm protecting the men and women below me, and there it's like goodbye. And the fact that we've just had, I mean, you can talk to Andrew about this, we've just had a supposed inquiry into the COVID-19 stupidity, a complete whitewash. They also do not want to, just out of interest, they don't want to release the number of people that have been injured. They've already turned around and said, well, if we release that, then people are going to be rather upset about it. Well, people are rather people have woken up. They're rather upset over a load of things in this. have other men and women that were dismissed because they stood up and had integrity, like yourself, have they repaid you? Have they sorted out the pensions? Have they
Right. Yeah,
readdressed it?
that's a good question. So it took quite a fight. We had 231 signatories of the Declaration of Military the Military Declaration of Accountability. And so the DMA, the Declaration of Military Accountability. So we signed it. I think I was signatory number 3. This is like a Declaration of Independence. And what it did was it went to the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the 1st of January last year and woke up. That was in their email. And we gave a hard copy to the Secretary of Defense. And that they went after every single one of them in different ways. And it didn't matter. We were all still in uniform. I was getting out at the time, retiring. And I'll tell you that was a wake up call, because now you've got a bunch of people saying, look, there's accountability for this, because our Secretary of Defense now, Pete Hegseth, has come out and said, hey, guess what? That was an unlawful order. What Doc said, what I said, because I've talked to through surrogates to him as well, and they get it. And we had a Defense Medical Epidemiology database, the DMED, and we provided the information on the numbers of people that were damaged by that. Right, a neurologic events, just one category went up 1100% rise over the period of time that the soldiers were getting it. Now I saw it firsthand, so I got the I was going empirically. I was just going off what I saw, and I said I will not. And of course, a 2-star general came down and he got in my chili and he said, hey, Doc, I love you, but you got to quit doing these informed consents and you got to quit sending the shot teams home from the border. And I said, sir, that's an unlawful order. Now, if a lieutenant colonel does that to a 2-star general, they turn red first. I'm going to explain what happens. They turn red, they get extremely angry, and they say, your career's on the line. And I said, well, sir, I've been shot downrange before, going to protect soldiers. I have no problem with putting my career on the line. So that's what emboldened, right? Emboldened, because sometimes you need somebody to say, hey, follow me if you want to live. So you embolden the others, and then we had more and more to where we got 231, and then now it's in the tens of thousands that understand. There was a story on Omaha Beach in Normandy where a lieutenant colonel got on the beach and said, there's 2 kinds of soldiers on this beach, the dead and those who will die. And they followed him through. They put they burst the wire, the concertina wire, and they ran through, and they went all the way to Berlin. It takes that one person sometimes, and others will follow, because it's just that moment of, what do I do? I don't know, my career. And that's what's happened. So we've seen a positive result there, but the lackeys that were there, the lemmings, the cowards, they're still there, and we're ferrying them out one by one. And my prayer, my hope is that, and hope is not a plan, I used to tell my troops that all the time, but we're actively working on this, is that we get every single one of those people out, because as long as they're still in there, and that operational element between command, they will drag their feet as long as they can to remain in the woke DEI world that they've pushed over the starting with the Biden administration. And that really has affected our schools as well. A whole nother subject.
Mark,
Joe, do you think, sorry, JJ, go ahead.
And one of the things that, here in Oklahoma, we did a interim study. I held an interim study, and I worked with lawyers. I worked with researchers. I worked with doctors. And, we were able to prove that ivermectin was started for human consumption, that they knew good and well that it was perfectly great medicine, that there was no side effects, harmful side effects. Hydroxychloroquine, same thing, yet they denied it. And then they started protocol. We were able to prove this protocol, which was to isolate, which was to give remdesivir, which they knew also was a bad drug. It was killing people. So isolate, remdesivir, they would sedate like you would not believe, sedate them. And then again, they would set them up, stop food, and set them up to put them on a vent, because they were making money. The protocol was they were getting paid for the vent. They were killing people. And again, they were forcing people to take this shot, which is extortion. If I tell you you're going to lose your job or you're going to take this shot, guess what? That's extortion again by government. So what we did, we put a brief together, a very, very comprehensive brief. I did a probable cause. So there's an act called RICO across the nation. Oklahoma has its own kind of RICO Act. It's called the Oklahoma Corruption Enterprise Act. And anyways, we did a probable cause on that, saying that kidnapping by sedation So when you, like on a date rape deal, if you kidnap somebody by drugging them, kidnapping by sedation, also assault, also fraud, where they were signing consent, they were fraudulently signing these consents, extortion. We filed all that with the AG. Now here's what's funny: the auto pen, I think, is going to erase Fauci's. He's going to have accountability.
Yeah.
But here in Oklahoma, guess what? That auto pen don't mean that. That pardon means absolutely nothing. So we can go after him through this act, this Oklahoma Enterprise Corruption Act. And so, anyways, if our AG would again grow some backbone and go after them, that is setting. Not only did we provide a probable cause, we provided debris, but we went out and found 2 women whose husbands had died. They had kept awesome records. We had all the proof. So we gave them the 2 cases that 100% proved this. And so he's got everything sitting on his desk, ready to go after this whole enterprise that goes from Oklahoma all the way back to Washington. And they can take in everybody who had anything to do with the crime committed in Oklahoma. But again, we have cowards that won't act, in our government.
Can I add something to that? Can I add something to that, Mark? JJ, when you're done with them, and I recognize the elements of the crime there, and you develop the intent, would you please, after you're done with them, would you let us extradite them to Texas so we can try them as well?
Oh, heck yeah. Texas needs to file. Texas can file the same thing. All they got to do is take that brief. And in fact, what really ought to happen is all of these AGs should get together file multiple charges. And again, have them wore out. They do the reverse what they did to Donald Trump. File on him, New York, file on him in Georgia. How about we file on him in Texas, Oklahoma?
He'll only be able to stay in maybe 1 or 2 places, Vermont and California. That's the only place he won't be able to hide.
I'm surprised, that somebody has not already done this. But again, anybody listening, if there's an AG out there from any state listening, all the documents, all you got to do is get hold to me. I've got every document saved. I've got these ladies. Of course, we'd have to find somebody in your own state. But I'm going to tell you something. If it's Texas, I got people that I work with in Texas that we've already got cases on, and we would be ready to rock and roll. If it's Florida, we've got, like I say, I've worked with people all over the nation to get this done. So we're ready to rock and roll about anywhere you want to go.
That's brilliant. It's great. It's great, guys. It's brilliant to hear the fact that you can work together across state lines. Hallelujah. And turn this situation around and bring, we want to see people brought to justice in this situation. But Doc, for you and other people that were kicked out of the forces over that, has all of that been addressed by now?
It's starting to be addressed. So we're seeing some of those that were kicked out being brought back on service. Mark Bashaw is a good friend of mine. He was court-martialed. He was one of the 4 original whistleblowers with me and 2 others. We testified in a SEALs versus DOD case. The SEALs didn't want to take it based upon a religious exemptions. We went to bat for them. We went to the federal court system, all the way just shy of the Supreme Court, and we won the case. They weren't safe. They weren't effective. We could do it by lesser intrusive means, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, et cetera, nasal swabs, you name it. We were seeing a lot of people, and nobody was getting tested coming across the border. But so in that case, what's happened now is they're starting to be brought back on because of the pressure by the Military Accountability Group, which is, up front, it was bad because we were dealing with Lloyd Austin. Now we're dealing with somebody that's listening to us in the Secretary of Defense position, and he's doing a good job of bringing people back. It's just not, of course, nothing is ever quick enough for folks, but it is happening. So we've put the catalyst in the formula now. So now we got the catalyst. We're watching it happen. People are being, even Mark Bashaw, who was, court-martialed by a guy named Vindman, if you've ever heard of that name. This is a judge advocate general that's brothers with the guy that listened in on the Ukraine call with the president.
Right. Interesting.
So you're starting to see some of these little rats that are out there.
That case has just been thrown out, hasn't it? There's a case, the president has just been thrown out.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Mark, but you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. No. We can straighten some of this and we can right some wrongs, But I'm going to give you an example. My youngest son just graduated airborne. He just got assigned to Fort Bragg up there. And my middle son was set to go to the National Guard. He was wanting to go, had already done everything. I mean, he was ready to go. And this was in 20. And again, he come home and Dad won't have to take shot. They told me I wouldn't have to take shot. I pick up the phone and call one of our National Guard top people and say, hey, this boy right here says y'all ain't gonna make him take a shot. And I'm told him he's lost his mind. Y'all are gonna make him take a shot. And what the National Guard guys told me, he said, hey, we're not gonna make him in Oklahoma take a shot, but when he goes to boot camp, they're gonna make him, the feds will make him take that shot to go to boot camp. There's no way anybody tells you he's not is lying to you. So my son did not go to the National Guard, which he really wanted to do, and I think would have been great for him. He's currently a police officer. He's finished with CLEAT. He's graduated CLEAT. He's got a bright future ahead of him. But I think that he would have benefited from the Guard, and I think that having that on his record would have been great. Something that he could, and I'm proud of him, man. I'm proud to death. And I was one encouraged him, don't go, don't take a shot. Do not take a shot, don't go. So again, you can't put that guy, my son won't get the opportunity there that ship's done sailed, and he won't have that opportunity. So how many did we lose, and how many people are in that kind of boat that will never be able to go back and we can make amends and make that right. So again, I hope that we do right by as many as we can. But again, that's how many people lost their job because they were unwilling to take a shot. And what can we do about that today? That ship's pretty much sailed. And again, we should hold those accountable. I think that we should hold those accountable who caused that issue.
There you go.
To both of you, because we go back, 2020 seems such a long time ago, and we're looking at 5 years, which just seems completely mad to me. When all that kicked off, has it completely changed your mind how you view vaccines and the whole medical intervention stuff? I mean, I'm concerned about of course the farmers. I didn't take the vaccine. I'll just say that. I'm concerned about, big pharma over here, the pill popping. It's like, here's a pill, solve this, solve that. And the same in America as well. Did it change your views on medical work?
Absolutely. Yeah. From a medical standpoint, for me coming in, I'm 60 years old. So when I got, when I was a little tyke, 3 or 4 shots is what we got. And, didn't really have any issues. And of course I went in the military and my shot card is, as long as my arm, and it's on front and back, and it's, anthrax is included on there. And so there were a lot of things that we had with that problem set. But for me now, I questioned it because I never saw the diagnosis when I went to medical school and I graduated, took the boards. We didn't have a diagnosis of attention deficit disorder like we do now, or autism like we do now. And so just when you hear a hoofbeat, there's a saying here in Texas, when you hear a hoofbeat, you think about a horse and not a zebra, right? So that's an Occam's razor kind of thing.
Got you.
Right. So we look at that, we say, you think maybe since these shots have come out and the increase of autism is through the roof, and what Bobby Kennedy's talking about, and I've talked to him through Children's Health Defense before, I'm a firm believer that this is a second, third order effect of those. And there are some of those, I mean, given hepatitis B to babies, that's bloodborne, transferred thing that is done via sharing of needles or blood products or sexual intercourse. Babies are not going to be in that category. Why are we giving it to children if it's unnecessary? So now it makes you look, like you just asked the question, wonder if we need to measure 3 times before we cut once this time. Right?
Absolutely.
Simple speak, right?
So how much within, sorry, JJ, go ahead.
Now, my son is autistic. I got my oldest son's highly functional autistic, about to graduate college. Very proud of him, doing great. But again, I started looking at the increase, quite a while ago, because they were saying, no, it has nothing to do with vaccines. But yet you can see and track that when we started seeing autism take off the charts, when they started doing all these vaccines. So you don't have to be just brilliant and to know the metals that they have in that. So again, I started looking at that. I went in to the 10 years ago to the legislator being, oh, I don't know. I'm willing to look at it. I'm willing to listen to it. But what's come out since COVID and there's the mandatory ignorance that went on and the blindness that went on. I think if anybody has not opened their eyes to what's going on with the vaccines, what's going on with medical, what's going on with our food, like Doc mentioned a while ago, it's time we wake up and start looking at everything that I believe has been something to wipe out our society. Again, whether it's on cancers, whether it's on other illnesses, whether it's on vaccines, whether it's on these foods that we now are learning that other countries don't have, won't allow, and yet here we are pushing it on our children and pushing it on everybody. So again, I think that COVID for me woke me up to vaccines, woke me up to freedoms, woke me up to how overreaching government is. I'm not glad we had COVID, but I will tell you this: I was already pretty, I've always been known pretty conservative in the legislature. Right now, I would say COVID has made me 100% more conservative, 100% more aware of how corrupt our government. And I will tell you, it was because of COVID that I started going after corruption. And right now, pretty well known in the state of Oklahoma for going after corruption in our state government. And it's a whole lot based on what I've seen come out of our government during that time period.
Were you both quite shocked, reflecting now back at that time, of how your fellow American citizens actually behaved, in the fact that they believed all this? Doc, you and I, from your medical training, we could discuss germ theory and terrain, right? We could go back to Nightingale, we'd go back to the Crimean War. We could talk about the importance of cleaning up the air.
Preventative medicine. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then how much within your training, how much did you have that talked about the holistic side, looking at the person as a whole, instead of turning, I'm not saying in your case, but I'm thinking of other general practitioners over here.
It's a great question.
Go.
It's a great question. I'm going to answer it like this. My dad was a family doctor, small town doc, DO. There's DOs and MDs. I'm a DO as well. And so DOs tend to focus more on the holistic side. We tend to focus there. We do a lot with manipulative therapy and things like that. But we also have licensure to prescribe anything. So you're a physician. I was a surgeon and a flight surgeon. But I'm going to tell you that that the newer generation now, which I've seen, has gone to the algorithmic approach to medicine, which is more corporate structure, right?
Yeah.
Because of the way when Obamacare came is really when that started. So you look at the doctors, and I know that area real well, the Texoma region, both north and south of the Red River. Those hospitals were all bought out by corporations. And that Texoma Medical Center, that's the one that I dealt with 40 different entities along the Red River. Small town doctors cannot open up shop anymore like they used to. JJ and I were talking about a mutual friend that he grew up under as his family doctor, who I trained under. And so these doctors were they really had the health and welfare of the person up front in prevention, right? In prevention. This is old school medicine. And just like I used to go and ride around the country and do house calls. So now we see this, it's a corporate style, which means you got to check the boxes. We got to fulfill the federal requirements, and doctors can't keep their doors open. So they have to go into these corporate type entities who then give policy, and policy is driving that. So for me in Texas, we must decentralize medicine, because once we decentralize it, we take it out of the hands of the Texas Medical Board, which is a woke DEI pushing, and remdesivir and all these things, going after doctors for giving ivermectin. They're still going after them. There's still just these cases started then, they're still admonishing them because they didn't go by the rules. We got to get away from that. And that is really, I'm seeing it happen. It's slow going. We're going to get there. And when we come in, this can be an executive order for me. Number one, mRNA technology in the state of Texas, not allowed. It's still experimental on products that go into meat, on product, because the hog industry has a shot for them. They've been working on it for 10 years for the beef industry. If that comes in, where you might as well forget about healthy beef in the state of Texas or anywhere else for that matter that accepts mRNA technology. That's a moratorium until you prove it to me, as the guy that's protecting these citizens. Until you prove it to me, you're not allowed to sell that stuff in this state. I mean, we've got to be that hard about it. Same thing with decentralizing medicine. We got to be that hard. I got to fire the Texas Medical Board and create a task force and decentralize the whole thing so they're run back at the levels of those providers who practice good medicine and not algorithmic policy, corporatocracy controlled medicine.
When you're talking about hogs, pigs, what are they doing to the pigs? Are you talking about what they're injecting?
They're injecting vaccines that are using the mRNA technology. That's modified RNA. That's not messenger RNA, which is really how our body, God created us. He did it perfectly. Yeah. And so when you start bringing in modified, that starts leading towards the transhumanism side of the house.
Yes, absolutely.
Modified the deoxyribonucleic acid molecule, right? DNA to make you live healthier. It's not. It's shortening lifespans. It's creating a lot more deleterious side effects. So for me, it's that simple. And so until you can prove it to me, moratorium, we're stopping it. Just like I'm going to stop, chemtrails in the state of Texas. Whole nother story.
No, but a very, very important story. But why do they feel that they have to inject the hogs? What is their excuse to say that they're protecting the pigs from? What is this? Why are they doing it?
Most of the things, Mark, are when you're looking at those steroids, when you're looking at all the things they're injecting, it's to build weight. It's to build a lot of that will put water on them. What you're doing, you're getting paid by the pound. And so again, anything that'll grow that, they don't care whether it's healthy or unhealthy for you. If you went to the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, look at the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. This is going to show you a globalist attack on the meat market. And it's not just the beef market. If you was to look in Oklahoma or around the nation, if you want to look at poultry, guess what? They took down the independent poultry farmers. The globalist activists did. They took down those by making the market so high that the independents had to get out. Now they control the entire market. If you were to take pork and you were to put the economic chart of the poultry and you put pork right up against it, guess what? The same crash, because we no longer have independent farmers that raise pork. We have Tyson's. We have these big corporate operations that run pork. And guess what? They're trying to do the same thing with beef. When we talk right now about we have a shortage of beef we have a shortage of cows. That's by design. We have four packers. Guess what? They're violating the Sherman antitrust laws. They're violating the monopoly laws. We don't have to rewrite laws. We don't have the laws. Go enforce laws and kick their butt out of our country. And again, let's start our own independent, grow our farms back. Let's quit giving all these grants to foreign. Guess what? We have right here in Oklahoma, little town just south of here, that they have one Chinese group that is got like 13 houses, big poultry houses. And again, they're saying, well, they're American and they're Oklahoma citizens. I'm like, oh, yeah. That's the Tangs. Yeah, they're steeped down there in Curtin County. Yeah, the old Tangs, old Hunan and old Duck and all them. It's so ignorant that we're that ignorant that we do this to ourselves. And again, we need to go after our government is giving money to if you go to a hotel, guess what? Find an American hotel, tough. Go to a convenience store, find an American convenience store, own American convenience store, tough. You want to talk about truck drivers, independent truck drivers being pushed out through grants that our country is giving to foreign-owned, giving them favoritism. Our own people can't get grants. If you're talking about farming, if you're talking about farmland, if you're talking about all these things, we're giving our damn country away, and it's our own government giving it to the foreign right here, and it's time we stop. We got to find a way to tax that. We got to find a way to stop that, or at least that's one of the things I'm working on here in Oklahoma. Is that's this nonsense. It's craziness that has to stop. And I do want to say one thing. You want to talk about? We were talking about medical. Doc was talking about the medical and the stupidity that they use. But one thing, you want to talk about stupid going to seed. Guess what? When you're looking at a church can be closed, but you can keep a bar, a strip joint open.
Yep.
You
Yep.
can have, protests, but you can't go to church. What kind of stupidity? That'll tell you right there what's going on. And again, it's just ignorance going to seed. And I'll tell you the last thing on medical that I saw on that. I went into one place and I'm sitting there getting ready. I'm in the doctor's, that little room they take you back and you're sitting on that table. Nurse comes back here and starts asking me questions, starts asking me how many guns do I own, questions like that. I said, hey, it ain't got nothing to do with my medical. It ain't got nothing to do with anything in here. If you want to know all that, you can hit the road. I'll go find somewhere else to get treated. So again, that's the stuff that you were seeing. Politics creep into the medicine. We got to get the politics out of our medical and let the doctors do what they know and allow the doctors to speak up and actually serve the people.
Well, it's interesting when Doc is talking about the corporation of medicine, and over here that we have what's called a National Health Service. It's, as you would call it, socialized medicine, because the government pay for it. And in many ways, when you're talking about corporatism, when we're talking about public-private partnership, which is the new word for fascism, in many ways, there's not a lot of difference between those two systems, because within our system, as far as I'm concerned, through the public purse, we're making various companies billions and billions of pounds by buying their pills and throwing them out there. And Doc, you raised a very important point. When you look at babies, many years ago, there might be 3 or 4 vaccines that babies would be given. Frankly, as I look now with my own education, 4 is far too much. Where now there might be even 60 or 70 needles looking at them in a very, very short space of time. I want to segue completely different. We may come back to some of those issues, but I want to go back into go to a really important issue. And it's one of the reasons why we're here, because we have mutual friends, which is Tammy and Peter. And just to give a complete shout out to everyone, which is to go to the website, Where is Jonah Reef? And to watch that, look at all the details of what we are all trying to do, which is to raise awareness in regard to child trafficking and all of the abuse of that. Doc, you mentioned something that I just found horrific, but I know it, of course, I know it goes on, where you said about children leaving America in regard to organ harvesting and going elsewhere. Have you had to deal with this? Have you come across cases that you've been trying to stop?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're my 501c3, if you will, my non-for-profit. I started in 2022. At the end of 22, when I left my military career, is a ministry, but it's an association of ministries. But we also do counter human trafficking, and we do humanitarian relief. So when North Carolina got hit by a big hurricane, Western North Carolina, which was kind of weird, seemed like a little bit of geoengineering out there, but we can go there later. But we heard that we heard that there were some kids that were getting ready to in a Connex be shipped across the ocean, U.S. kids to Africa specifically for organ harvesting. Now we had heard this traffic before, but this was the first case that I was able to be in on. Unfortunately, by the time we made it out to Charleston, where they were going out of, the ship had already sailed. There wasn't any way we could get to them, and we could not get anybody from the Fed side to do anything about it. Right? That's just the way it was. And so we went ahead and helped out in North Carolina and did our humanitarian side. But these are things that are I never dreamt. As a guy that was in uniform on the border that was looking at children being trafficked, right? We stopped quite a few cases of it happening, but then we gave those unaccompanied minors to the Border Patrol, who then put them into a center down there on the border. They went to Child Protective Services in the state of Texas or other states, and they disappeared. Tara Rodas testified in Congress to 300,000 plus that were missing from the border. We think it's more like 500,000. We
Right.
followed that case, the first case for me in Texas, 119 boys between the ages of 12 and 15 that were brought into Austin, and they're now part of truly, this is more of a gang, which is just basically, rolling cars and selling, fencing equipment out of it. But they were given to five sponsor families, 119 boys over the period of about a year and a half. And so when we look at that and say, well, if we can find this easy through Tara Rodis's help with the information, what's going on? We only able to get to rescue, through law enforcement, 35 of those kids. And that's just a drop in the bucket. Right. And so it made me go, well, what's going on with CPS, Child Protective Services? Well, there's a problem there. Well, what's going on with the judges that are signing on to it? Well, there's a problem there. What's going on with the law enforcement who's working off duty and then going and picking these kids up on some of these civil cases in the state of Texas, where there's a dispute between a mom and a dad. They're both bad now. Let's throw them into a foster home and then they go missing. So this is a problem set. It's just, once again, common sense. How do we trace that back to the origin, if you will, the seed of where it started? And it's evil. It's straight up principalities, rule of darkness, you name it, it's evil. But it's going to take a lot of work, because you start talking against judges, you start talking against law enforcement. And I was a reserve deputy for a little while up there on the Red River. I get it. I didn't work a lot of those cases, but they had the social workers working on. But we might have to show up at the house. If there's an order from a judge, you got to enact it. And so you thinking you're doing the right thing, but really you might be part of that system, not even knowing it. And so we've got to get to the bottom of that. And I applaud, JJ, because he's on the forefront of this thing and way ahead of me on that, as far as from the legislative side. But we've got to get that lined up, because these are God's most precious. You look in the eyes of a child. I've rescued a few. You look in the eyes of a child that's been rescued, you're looking at heaven, right? And that is why we're here. For me as governor too.
One of the things that we're doing is just fighting our government, because again, I can come in here and show you problem after problem, case after case that we have the absolute 100% proof that wrongdoing from the court, wrongdoing from CPS, DHS, OJA, all of these. We've got one case where kids possibly waterboarded in a mental health institution, and our own government stops us from getting an investigation because they don't want the scandal. And we have kids being molested that we go to and say, hey, these detention centers are molesting kids, not one. Now they come in and verify it on one, but what we're coming back, shouldn't those agencies that we went and told that beforehand, and we told them, hey, these kids are being molested, and they didn't want the scandal and they continue to let it go on. But we're talking about cases where kids are being put in homes that they know there's abuse going on, or put in foster care, or gone, completely gone. We have case after case. And our leaders in Oklahoma, they'll go, oh, that's terrible. And man, DHS so broken. Somebody's going to have to do something. Well, them some bucks been there 10 years or 4 years, 5 years, whatever, and in leadership positions and done absolutely nothing. And then when I step in and try to do something, you're having to fight them. So it's not just the DHS. It's not just CPS. I had a reporter call me, and I gave her some information. She called me back. She said, you realize this year 52 kids are unaccounted for in Oklahoma, just off the information I gave her. And I was like, well, if you really want to see something super, go pull one of the largest grants that was given by Homeland Security. Look at where that went to, which went to Oklahoma, and then start looking at those. That grant was to place undocumented kids. And let's start looking at how many in that group is gone. And why is nobody even talking about this? People are scared to talk about it because, again, it's going to bring heat down on the government officials. Anybody that does it, I'm ready to go. I've called it out several times. But again, why is it that I can find stuff like that pretty, like Doc said, it's not brain surgery. It's pretty low hanging fruit, and we can see it. Then why is it our government stepping in and doing something in these cases? And this CPS and DHS issue is not just Oklahoma. It's not just Texas. It's nationwide. And I didn't think that it had the tentacles and the organization to it and the money to it until I started visiting with Tammy and some of the people we work with, Tammy, and that's how me and Doc got hooked up. And so again, the people we're hooked up across the United States, you start talking and you go, wow, that's the same thing I got over here. And they say, wow, that's the same thing we got over here. And all of a sudden you're seeing that this is a nationwide issue and really a worldwide issue, not just an Oklahoma issue.
It is a worldwide issue. We're very aware of that over here, and also particularly with this European war in regard to Ukraine and Russia, and in regard to that with children. And again, JJ, you just mentioned Tammy, and I'll just say it again. Please, people, go on the website, whereisjonahreef.com, and look that up, sign up, put your email there so we can share information and we can inform you of what is going on, because we're being serious. We're talking about a dear friend of ours where sadly her child was kidnapped. There is no other word for that. How you, as a parent myself, how you cope with that, I admire her so much, but I'm not saying that there are those down days, but how you cope with that, I do not know. I can't get my head around that, because it is just beyond disgusting. But
well,
JJ,
how the government was involved, and again,
yeah,
people who manipulated government, manipulated the court system, who actually put her in jail. And again, the jails they put her in and how they kept her. The first time I heard that story, and I'm pretty open by now to going, okay, but the first time I heard her story, I was like taken back going, wow, this one's hard, but you just get around her and get to find out, hey, all of this is true. All of this has been documented. She's been in front of the government, the U.S. government, and testified. And so again, her story is just terrific. It's just, you really need to go and check out to see just the extent of what people can do and how organized and how much financial abilities they've got to be able to take kids through the methods that they do. It's just unbelievable.
Absolutely. And as Doc was just saying, this is a spiritual battle, as Ephesians 6 says. We're not fighting flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. And this is what we are dealing with. And as you so eloquently laid out, JJ, the story's real. The story is absolutely real in Tammy's case. And I think, I'm not going to name people, but sadly there are a number of Christians and church pastors or whatever, who shall be named nameless, who find that hard to get their head around, or go, well, that's your ministry, not mine. This isn't a game. This is not a game at all. This is real, and the effect on people's lives. It's real. We're not making it up. It's not a film or a drama. It's a real script. Where are we? You recently were in Washington, D.C., JJ, with legislation. Do you want to talk about that and what you were doing? And you were speaking to people in Washington. I know that we're dealing with two wings of the same bird, to say the least, but I think you met some genuinely helpful people down there. Do you want to?
Oh, absolutely. I met some of the best people while I was in Washington. And again, here's what's funny is, as you start to work in these systems, and again, for me, I was just of the impression we're going down there on human trafficking. We've got this bill legislation. Again, I started working with this whole group, getting on Zooms and talking and all of that. And so we're going to meet in Washington. But here's what you don't think about. So you got APS, which is the Adult Protective Services, and how the court is taking away elderly people's homes and finances and all of these things, putting them in nursing homes when they have family that want to take care of them, but they're taking and saying, family, you're not doing a good enough job. We're going to put you in here. Whether it's medical saying, DHS going to step in and say, you're not doing a good enough job medical. We're going to take your kid from you and we're going to do this. Whether it's homes, mortgages, mortgage frauds, all of these things the courts are doing that I had been seeing and just thought it was just me. When I get up around these groups, there's a guy named John out of Oregon. Man, I call him Subaru John. He's good dude. He's an awesome guy. And again, he was there over mortgage fraud, and we had all these other people there. And one of the other ladies that's one of the main people was there on mortgage fraud and how it tied into human trafficking. And so this legislation that was put together.
JJ, sorry, could you unpack that? Because you talk about the APS, so you've just talked about elderly relatives that are then put in nursing homes. So that what to do? Do the authorities then sell their homes?
Sure. What they do
is
sell
their homes to pay for that.
They put a trustee over all of their finances because they're saying the family's not taking care of it. They're trying to steal from, and here's the deal. We need DHS, we need APS, we need CPS to work and function properly. But what we're seeing is they have just come, we're going to have to break down and start all over ground zero. But what they'll do, they'll take a trust. Say you got a kid that they take custody of that may have a big trust fund. They'll put somebody over that trust fund and they will bleed them dry. Then you have mortgage frauds that are coming in where the court takes over somebody's mortgage, or probate. You see it on probate stuff, and the courts take over this and the family ends up getting absolutely nothing. And these lawyers end up getting everything, and the court just lets it continue and happen. And again, we're not saying every court, we have good people, we have bad people, as in everything, but it is widespread across the nation. And when you sit down and start visiting with these groups all across the nation, practically in every state, you start going, wow, it's not just me that's ran into this stuff. We're seeing the same things all around. So what we did, we went in, we got legislation that addresses all of this. It's not just the human trafficking. It's how the courts allow the human trafficking, how the Bar Association has manipulated the entire court process, and how that the Bar Association really should be eliminated. And again, we need to be able to process some of this our own. Why should you not be able to walk in and, as a pro se individual, be able to represent yourself? Why has the court system become so complicated? And even if you do understand, I don't want to act like I'm a lawyer, but I've been in court a little bit, 35 years law enforcement, and I've acted basically as a judge's clerk. I know how to operate a little bit in the courtroom, but if I walk in, those judges are not even going to allow, if I file a proper order, if I file a proper motion, guess what? They're going to shoot me down like I'm an idiot to keep me from that. And again, we filed legislation that would stop all of these wrongful acts, that would take us back to the original founding fathers, what they intended for our legal system to look like. And so we met with many, many legislators, one legislator in particular that we feel we have great hopes in, that will champion this. We're going to see anybody who knows anything about legislation and about especially Washington, D.C. politics knows that it's a pretty tall tree that we're wanting to climb here. Pretty tough. But again, we got to get the word out, and that's what we're doing here. And again, we got to start in these states, with people like Doc, with people like me. And if we can start in our home state, and then again to convince our Congress people that we've got it right and it's time that they get it right. That's where you start. You take care of your own backyard, and then you team up with people who are trying to take care of their backyard. And then we all team up together, and united we stand, divided we fall. We get united. We get passionate about what we're doing. We got some passionate people. We got some strong people, some very great minded people. And we're having some, I think, some success. I mean, we were able to get into some doors that I didn't know whether we'd be able to get into, and we were able to get into, and I think had some really good conversations. If you've been in government for 10 years, whether you're being heard or whether you're just being shined. And a couple of the offices we got shined, but we were in two offices that I really felt like hurt us and really got down into the dirt to understand it. And we had a guy with us that is very I mean, one of the sharpest people on this I've ever seen. He's a mechanic, but I'm telling you, the guy is brilliant, and he has presented himself very well. And so hopefully we'll be able to get some things done.
Brilliant, because this, I suppose you raised the important issue. I want to come back to Dr. Zepp, but you raised the important issue of why term limits and stuff are really, really important in regard to when they get comfortable with being lobbied and then being paid so much money from those lobbyists. Doc, are you seeing exactly the same issues? This is then part of your campaign that you want to turn around in
That is
regard
exactly,
to
yeah, that's exactly it. The more that you, when you come out and you're, a leader, I'm an executive type leader. I'm a military officer that's led men in combat and in other places. So when you do that, you can't come in with a false pretext that you know everything, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't. So you drink from a fire hose of information when you're running for governor. So everything from, the job description of governor all the way to AI data centers in the ground and batteries that are with Chinese components in it. You have to learn everything, but you learn enough of it to know that if you don't know, you find the right people. So we're dealing with taxes, we're dealing with all these things, decentralized medicine, we're dealing with doctors that are good people that understand it. So I find the best and the brightest and the smartest, just like in this situation with this lawfare, this particular piece. And so you have to, it seems chaotic. And then one thing that I learned as a Green Beret was, a lady wrote a book called The Masters of Chaos, and she was writing about the Green Berets, the training. When you're in a chaotic environment, you have to control the controllables, right? Which means bits and pieces. It's just what JJ's saying. So you don't go in and just say, well, I'm going to do everything, because how do you do everything? So you control what you can at the lowest common level, common denominator, lowest level. And then we start uniting throughout the state. Let's say, for example, central appraisal districts. We want to bring it down in each county so people are actually have a fair say in what their taxes are when they buy a house and when they sell it, and what they get taxed for. So you start winning at 254 counties in Texas. You start winning it county by county. Same thing with us. We win it in Texas. We start bringing in some of this counter lawfare, and then we pair up with our brothers in Oklahoma and Louisiana. There's a great man over in Louisiana that's a federal side representative, a congressman who I've talked to before with regard to emergency response to hurricanes and things like that, fires. So we get the common sense people, right? It's really not a left or right thing. The left or right, I believe, that's kind of a uniparty thing. But you get that bell curve in the middle, right? That's still, you might vote a little bit left or a little bit right, but you get that common sense curve. That's the majority of the citizens in the United States. They're just common sense people, but they're run by the loudmouths on the right and the left. And so we got to quit that, because they're, we understand the Hegelian dialectic.
Yep,
so we create Fox News and CNN, and we go, and then we synthesize something underneath it. So every time you hear some kind of news story, you got to stop. And that's how you control the chaos, and you stop. And it has led to what I call not cognitive dissonance in this nation. That's a minimizing of something. It's led to Stockholm syndrome, which means you have a captor, and the captor owns you, and you're a captive. And then you start to fall in love with your captor because they gave you something back that they took away from you 4 years ago, right? And you feel like they're just so great, and I'm getting my free cheese now. Wait a minute. The way you beat Stockholm syndrome, as a guy that's done hostage rescue training and supported teams that actually did hostage rescues, when that captive has Stockholm syndrome, they grab a hold of that pole and they don't want to leave. And I have to look at them in the face and say, follow me if you want to live. And if you don't, I'm going to throw you over the shoulder, and we're going to carry you out of here.
Yeah.
And then we're going to break that the hard way. But if you want to win this thing as a nation, as a country, as a civilization itself, the world, it's the little victories. And these are little victories that we're seeing. So the same thing that JJ and I are seeing in the small, we're seeing these little victories. They will cascade, and they will, they will crescendo if we continue to stay on them. That means when they're on their spurs, as we say in Texas, when they're on their heels, you've got to keep pushing harder. Rocky Balboa, that's how winning is done. Eh?
Absolutely.
Right. So that's what we got to do.
Focusing more on Texas, right? So your take on, Texas is politically under attack. Yes,
sir.
If they could turn that, they can flip Texas, then they feel that they can get the rest of America.
Yeah.
Where are we at with the amount of mosques that are being built around the Dallas airport? This whole situation.
Roughly around 400 in Texas, and in the Dallas area within the last year, about 48 new ones. Sharia law, there's a couple of courts up there that are allowing it. You can't have Sharia law underneath the Texas Constitution or the federal Constitution. You just can't do it. It's not authorized. I've been downrange, and when the State Department tried to turn Afghanistan into a democracy, it doesn't mesh with the Quran. I studied it, understand it. It will not mesh. It will not. There's no way. And so you think that they're going to?
Sorry, how many times did you serve in? How many times did you go to Afghanistan?
I did two trips to Afghanistan, one to Iraq, one to Jordan, in the area, for years, really collectively. So I understand it. I speak two languages from that region, for that reason. They taught them to us. Green Berets, one of the differences, you got to learn the language so you can learn the culture and get inside. So when you understand those things and you're working with your State Department partners, I'm going to use that in quotes, their job was to try to do that, right? To create this democracy. Well, first of all, we're a republic here. We're a constitutional republic. So it's not a democracy. We have democratic processes when it comes to elections.
Absolutely.
Right. But we're not a democracy. So
we live under mob rule. You are desperately trying not to live under mob rule.
Bingo, right? So if you're in charge, you don't get to tell everybody else what to do. So it's just common sense. But for me, in Texas, we are going up against a Leviathan because it is so ingrained. And this Leviathan is there's a price tag with each and every portion of this. Going up for us, going up against a $100 million war chest. Okay, well, you can't defeat them on their battlefield. We got to bring them into the Thermopylae, if you will, into the 50 meters of narrow pass in order to fight on our battlefield, which means you got to understand what you're going against. And I watched a state rep in Texas. He raised $27,000 against a guy that had $4 million in his coffer and won. Right, so you can do it. It's just you got to do it wisely, and it's very to get enough voters on an off-cycle primary to vote, and you win it. Right, this is what Alan West went against when he ran against him, Abbott and Don Huffines and these other guys that were split the ticket, unfortunately. But that's a machine. So politically, Texas politics is dirty. I've been called everything but what I am, and it's okay. I got they did their opposition research, but I just feel like it's God's will. Whatever happens, happens. If we are a forcing function and we force truth to the very end, till March the 3rd, then we're forcing truth. We're bringing all this stuff to life.
The politics has been dirty in Texas for many, many years, including in recent memory going back to 1954. And very embarrassingly, I have forgotten the infamous name of that particular politician who then, after JFK was murdered, then stepped in as president. And I just wonder if you could remind me of his. Sorry?
Johnson.
Yes.
Yeah. Bingo. Yeah, he's at Johnson County, not Johnson County, Johnson City, which is about 40 minutes from me, is where he's from. And he came in under, very, very tied, very tightly to the CIA apparatus and all those things. There was a murder that took place in Dallas. It was a president. Do I have the receipts on it? No. But I've seen enough evidence to say that there was a conspiracy. It wasn't just a guy in a book repository. That there was something that happened there. But that president was specifically responsible for the very beginnings of where we're at now. Specifically responsible for.
Well, Mark,
there were huge questions, I think, over the election when he was elected, I think in 1954, and how suddenly, how did he acquire particular votes at that time? I'm not saying this to be clever. I'm saying this because I'm absorbed by your history and your politics, and I believe that we should be. Because, as I've said, even to our dear friend David Summerall a number of times, if America falls, then that's it. The whole of Western civilization goes because the president of the United States.
And JJ brought it up earlier. He brought it up earlier. He brought up the Venezuelans. Those source codes that were created in Venezuela, those coders, there were 6. There's only 4. They're still alive. And they're safe now. But that was brought up by some former DIA guys that actually brought that to General Flynn, to other people to show it. And then, of course, you know what they did to Flynn, and you know what they did to Mike Lindell, who paid for it all. So that is straight out of Venezuela. But that is a color revolution. That is part of it. And Johnson, under his administration, was responsible for all the way to Obama, who fired more, missiles into countries off the record, killing people, and said, he got the peace prize. We've got an apparatus that is just completely dirty.
Well, Mark.
Well, the Nobel Peace Prize is another subject. How can you then be given something and you haven't even done anything really for it? Sorry, JJ, I apologize.
No, what I want to say is, we're kind of talking about a grassroots, and can you win these elections with just grassroots, not having the money? And there are ways, there are paths, they're very difficult paths to get into that. But the thing that we don't talk about is that dark money. When we hear the word dark money, we always think Democrat. We always think that's Democrat control, and it may be Democrat control, but guess what? They go where whatever's in control. So if you have a red state, they will bring in dark money, and don't think that dark money doesn't go to those red state leadership Republicans, established Republicans. You don't get money. You do not take money that they don't control. So when you're taking big money, guess what? They want something for their money, and they fully intend to get something for their money. And when you start looking, if you go like to Oklahoma, you can track all this back to just a little circle of people controlling the entire thing. And then when you start trying to actually track the money, and I've done that, try to track the money, and there's ways if you want to just get deep into it, but just to do kind of a surface, you'll run into some post office box in the UPS or something there in Ohio that nobody has. It'll be the same. What's funny, the same treasurer will be over here in Ohio, and he'll be over here in Virginia, and he'll be down there in Georgia. And it's like, hey, this cat gets around. This boy he's a traveling man. He's like that Johnny Cash. I've been everywhere, man. And so, you know what I'm saying? That money comes pouring in, and it controls our elected people. And I would encourage people to find out, I'm running without a consultant. I'm running without, it's just me. And again, out there, I've got a webpage, jj4ok.com, jj4ok.com. You can jump on that and see what I'm doing. But again, I've turned down corporate money. I've turned down a bunch of lobbyist money. Now, if there's a good corporation and lobby listening, we'd love to have your money. It's not that I'm turning down, but I've got to have people that have like-minded, that want to see this country, want to see our state turned around. I don't want to be controlled by a bunch of corporate lobbyists, or by dark money, or by a bunch of politicians that have sold our country out and sold our states out. And that's what we're seeing. But it's just hard to get the message when you're looking at a state like Texas. You started this by saying that they could fit your country in Texas, 3 times? I think
2.5, yeah.
2.5. Yep. Well, Oklahoma's not that big, but we're still pretty, landmass wise. And for you to get the information when they come with all this money and they start ad after ads and sending out these mailer cards, and you don't have that to compete with it, again, you got to find another way to get your name out. Fortunately, I've been 10 years getting my name out there, and we'll see whether that'll suffice. But I'm going to tell you something, whether it's Doc or in Texas, or whether it's me, trying to do that is a uphill battle. I mean, it's fighting uphill. And again, it's more hand to hand. It's not something, it's very difficult to do, and you're the underdog. And again, it's just, that's what our country has got to start waking up and seeing, that if you're sitting there and you're seeing 50 cards come out on the guy, you better start going, who's paying for this? Who owns this man?
Yep.
If you're seeing all these commercials start for a year long, guess what? Them ain't free. Them ain't cheap. Who's bought that person off? Who owns that person? It's time that the American people, the Oklahoma people, Texas people wake up and start realizing that. and start becoming aware of who's running their government.
I hear you. And we're in the last sort of 9 minutes. So what I want to do is give you an opportunity to see how people can help you, how your campaigns are going. What are you up to? And as you've said, in regard to the grassroots, this is in regard to this uphill battle when we're dealing with sort of normal, but it's abnormal political behavior. All it is then getting into power and then not doing anything and representing the people, which you certainly, both of you, want to represent to the people. Doc, when is the election in Texas?
Right.
Did you say March?
Right.
And how can people support you? And just to clarify this, no, I'm not allowed to give any donations from outside the country. I'm fully aware of that. But Doc, how can people get behind you? How can they share your message,
Yes, sir.
etc.?
Well, we'll be posting this on our website too, so people can watch this. And so if you're wanting to help, it's docpetechambers.org. There's a volunteer page. We got a robust volunteer plan right now that's about 1,500 strong around the state with some major regional directors. And these are all people just volunteering, right? Same thing with my staff. Nobody's getting paid. I mean, this is all, these are all military guys that are retired. They have paychecks. And then there's also a give, for in Texas, you can get money from other states. And so that's great.
Right.
There's no limit to that. But I put just like JJ, hey, if you're from a lobbyist or you got a string attached, I've had to turn one down and I wanted to, take it, but I couldn't. And I told the lady, I said, this is how rhinos get started. There's no strings. I'm sorry. So that's the way to help out there. But I appreciate you allowing us to be here.
Well, Doc, I appreciate you being here, and it is a real delight to meet you, especially if we do have mutual friends, and I'm thousands and thousands of miles away. But my number, I have, of course, I love my country to bits, but America's second. So I appreciate that, because I appreciate the importance of it. So, Doc, can you just repeat your website again?
Sure. Doc Pete Chambers with an S, DOCPETE Chambers.org. And that's where you can find me.
What about people that really who are so good at getting on their knees and praying? What are your prayer requests?
Yeah, prayer requests is for discernment. We've been infiltrated a couple times, and they're going to do that to you. We expect it, and it's just the discernment to know, where. I may be very astute at doing that kind of thing. I've worked at Guantanamo Bay before. I can read people real easy, but not everybody on my staff is. And so sometimes you bring somebody in and you find out they're actually working for the other side. I love them all to death. I pray that they get their head on straight, but we've got to have some discernment, because it's going to get ugly here right now. We just officially filed. I filed 2 Fridays ago, which is once you start doing that, they start coming. We are in the lead right now of the others that are not incumbents. So we know that, and we don't take polls. We don't have enough money to do polls, but we know sentiment analysis very well. My guys are all very astute. So yeah, we can definitely take the prayers, because that's really what we need, is that discernment, and that God's will be done. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not saying that I win, because his will is what's really important to me. And I firmly, I don't, if somebody asked me once, a strategist, a $500 million guy, he said, we can't figure you out. He said, who do you take your marching orders from? I said, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And he goes, nice talking point. I said, sir, you're about to get on the fighting side of me. I said, that's very straight. That's exactly right. And so, I'm not going to impose my religion or my faith on anyone, but I will represent it like a soldier that I did. I bled for everybody in this nation. I'll do the same thing as governor.
Well, brilliant. And I will be very honored if you post this on your website, because it's been an incredible discussion. I hope we can do that. Dear Andrew, who was in charge of that, I have prayed that happens. JJ, what about your campaign? When are your elections for that post in your amazing state?
Absolutely. So the first one is going to be June 16th of 26. So if we get into a runoff, it's likely with 5 candidates that we're going to be a runoff, and then it would be August. My prayer for people would be, I don't want anything that God doesn't want for me, and I don't want anything that I pray all the time, God, don't give me anything that would ruin me. that I can't handle. You know what I'm saying? So whether that's money, I've seen money ruin people. I've seen power ruin people. I've seen positions ruin people. I've seen badges ruin people. And so my prayer is that, God, if this is what you want for me, then I want you to put me in there, but I want to be used. I don't want to just be a position. I want to change Oklahoma government. I believe I can change Oklahoma government. And so again, God's will. And if it's not God's will, then I'm glad to go home. My wife's got lots of projects for me at the house. Ranch needs lots of work, so we can do that. So how can you help me? You can go to jj4ok.com. That's a number 4, JJ, number 4ok.com. You can donate. You can also buy. We got one of the coolest. I wore a shirt today.
Yeah, I love that shirt.
So,
I need that T-shirt, JJ.
You can go to the website, get you a T-shirt that helps support us. We're going to get some hoodies and some long sleeves out for winter. And so we're going to be doing that. If we don't win, we got the coolest shirts by far. So anyways, you can jump on that. Or again, hold a meet and greet in your town. Get a hold of me. You can get a hold of me either on JJ Facebook Messenger. I'll give my number 580-239-0470. Set up a meet and greet. I'll be happy to come anywhere in Oklahoma. Would love to have help. We're going to put signs out on that website so that you can buy signs and all kinds of stuff. So we've already got one sign on there. We're going to get cups. We're going to get, but word of mouth, you getting out there and actually getting off the couch, getting involved, volunteering for us. Tell your neighbors, go out. You can at least influence 20, 30 people in your community, your churches, your schools, all of those places. Also, I'm doing a grand jury petition there in Payne County. Pay attention to that. We're going to have every bit of Oklahoma government on that daggum petition. We're fixing to call them all out. If I do not win, I promise you, we are going to be calling out the corruption in Oklahoma. It's as simple as this. If you want somebody pretty, not me. If you want a politician, not me. But if you want somebody to go straighten out government, shake up the cage, bite somebody, that's me all day long. I'm your guy if that's what you're looking for. So.
JJ, absolutely brilliant. I mean, between both of you, this would be quite an interesting question. How many miles do you think that you have actually begun to get under your the bonnet of your vehicle so far in regard to getting out there? Because that is one of the biggest challenges, isn't it? It is that traveling and getting out there. So as we're just about to end the show at any second, but JJ and Doc, how many miles do you think you've done so far?
Go ahead, JJ.
Here's the deal. Before I started running this statewide campaign, which started right at the end of July, I was putting about 5,000 miles a month on my vehicle, just being a state representative. I've doubled that since I started this campaign. So I would figure I'm at least doing 10,000 miles a month. Again, I really will double. I don't know that I can double that, but I'm going to tell you, after January, I plan to intensify the last 6-7 months of our campaign. I'm going to try to go somewhere all the time across the entire state. I'll crisscross the state, and I plan on even doing more. I will tell you this: at the end of the day, I'm gonna leave it all on the field. If I don't win, it ain't because I ain't worked. I'll outwork anybody. Period. I'm gonna outwork everybody, and if I don't win, it's not due to hard work. It's not due to passion. I'll dang sure put it all on the field.
Brilliant. There you go. Doc, what about yourself?
Yeah, in 4 months, we put on close to 80,000 miles. We're going to continue until March the 3rd is the day that we have our election. So we'll circle the state again. So we just keep moving. It's called barnstorming in Texas.
Right. Which is what? Going from barn to barn, so to speak.
I literally left a biker bar yesterday.
Brilliant. Guys, can I just thank you so much for joining me? I know 2 hours, it's a lot of it's a long time, but I really, really do appreciate that. And I have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, but just the privilege just be able to ask you questions, and also to just to encourage everyone to get behind these incredible American patriots, and in what they're doing, because this is so important. I'll just say this is without hyperbole, which is when on January the 6th, 2021, a number of my friends were there, of course, including David and others. They weren't just going to represent America. I said it, they were representing all of us that believe in freedom around the world. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And we continue to pray for justice in that situation. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. I don't know who I'm handing over to next, but we're just going to do that. Please keep in touch and inform me of how everything is going. And I look forward to, even on my own show on the Southern Report, I look forward to having the honor of having another chat and a catch up. But thank you, Doc. Thank you, JJ,
Mark.
so much.
Thank
Hey,
you.
and
We're live
Mark,
streaming as well.
Mark,
All right.
see that T-shirt again before he goes.
JJ, can we see that T-shirt?
I gotta see that.
Hey,
thing.
check it out. I literally just ordered one while we were sitting here.
Brilliant, brilliant, Michael. You've got to buy that. You've got to buy that T-shirt.
Oh man,
That'd be brilliant. Michael, I think, is based in California.
So
So,
you gotta know the story behind it. I put a hunting season on Bigfoot here in Oklahoma. I put a $3 million bounty, on him, but you gotta catch him alive, unharmed. You can't hurt him, fella. If you catch him alive, unharmed, come down here to southeastern Oklahoma. We all know where he lives. He lives in Holden of it. Come down here, we'll put you on to him.
JJ, I had a fantastic. Well, I was discussing this with Peter. I had a fantastic idea for a video for you, which was if you imagine the cameras outside a big sort of office block, and there's loads of Bigfoot walking across on all the different floors, and then Bigfoot coming out with you then shaking its hand and meeting it and going, I stand more of a chance than finding Bigfoot than I do an honest judge in this state, but I'm going to sort that out. And I would love to come over and film that. That would just be utterly hilarious. But Doc,
Awesome.
JJ, thank you, Michael. I'm just going to hand over to you, and thank everyone for listening. It's been an
well,
amazing
do you mind if I
conversation.
grab your guests before they? I have to say thank you, both of you guys, especially in Texas. I lived in Garland and Richardson and Dallas for quite a while,
Oh yeah.
back in the old Ann Richardson days.
Yeah.
And I can't thank you enough. I can't believe what I'm hearing. I know it's like that there now, but I'm from Michigan. Okay, I was born in a place called Hamtramck, which was about, I don't know, 80% Polish. When I grew up there, it's now 89% Muslim, and same with Dearborn, where the rest of my family was. And they somehow they pushed it through and got laws on the books so that they can do whatever they want Sharia law wise, sacrifice animals, whatever. And I went to a church out here one time. And this ex-Muslim guy was going around and doing a presentation on how Islam was going to take over the United States, and it had no shots fired, no violence. He said they're going to do it by numbers. They're going to do it by numbers. They're going to come in and they're going to reproduce like rabbits, and that's how they're going to do it. And I'm watching it in Texas. I mean, come on, Texas, that's a good old boy place. I love Texas here, and I'm hearing stories about that, about what's going on there, and it's almost hard to believe if I didn't have a good grasp on things through Christ and the Bible stuff. It'd be impossible to believe that, but and right near Dallas too.
I'm entering in Oklahoma, no Sharia law. We don't recognize Sharia law, so I'm going to file that this year.
Oh, good.
And
Well,
if
Michael,
run
I
out-
think, Mike, sorry to jump in, JJ. Michael, I think the key thing is also is listen to people like Robert Spencer, listen to people like Trevor Loudon on these issues, and also Raymond Ibrahim on your side of the pond is really important. But listen, I better go. But guys, thank you so much.
Great
And
to see you.
Michael, have a great show. All right.
Thank